So, the new season has been out on World of Tanks console for a decent amount of time now. We've had plenty of time to jump into the game over this last week, and I wanted to give my thoughts and opinions and also address some of the controversy that's been going around surrounding this update. Check out some of your guys' comments from the video that I did earlier on in the week where we talked about the new season, the changes, and how I personally was very, very excited about it. And obviously there was a lot of negativity towards this update, at least from the vocal minority / majority, and I don't really know if it is the case that like the majority of the player base really don't like this, but I think that has probably come down to the fact that it might have been a little bit too late that Wargaming have added this one in, where a lot of players have actually never had the experience of playing the game as it was truly intended. And yeah, it's going to take a bit of getting used to the new system, the new way of how World of Tanks is actually playing on console, which in my opinion, having played both different versions and various different iterations of the game throughout the time, this is genuinely one of the better ones that we've actually had, in my opinion. Of course, I want to clarify all of the things in this video are my opinion. I'm not trying to crap on anyone. I'm not trying to, promote wargaming. I don't get paid by wargaming as much as some people for some reason seem to think that anyone that talks positively is somehow paid by wargaming. You guys who watch the channel for any period of time know that I critique wargaming all of the time. I am not a wargaming CC. I am a wargaming CA now. So it changed basically. So either way, basically, the only reason I am affiliated with Wargaming is to make the content for you guys, which is playing the new tanks, reviewing them for you guys, and essentially giving my input from you guys to Wargaming, so they hopefully at least listen to the community itself. There's no vested interest from me personally, in all fairness. If I wasn't a Wargaming CA, personally, it doesn't affect me whatsoever. Like, I don't get anything from it. And yeah, that is basically just some of the things I wanted to say before we get into the video. And by no means am I trying to say anything bad about specific players or stuff like that, because the comments that we'll review in a bit are just generally widespread between a lot of people. And I think some of them are just misfounded. Some of them are true critiques. And the whole point about trying to critique and make the game better is because you believe that the game could be better. And so, yeah, that's what I think. You should be constructive in the feedback we're giving. Otherwise, it's just like if you just say worst update ever, like why? Why is it the worst update? Like, what's bad about it? What don't you like about the thing in specific, not just game bad? It doesn't really help anyone in any situation, even yourself. If you want the game to be better and you think it's bad, that it doesn't help because you've not actually told anyone why it's bad or why you think or perceive it to be bad or whatever. And at the end of the day, as I always say, if you hate playing something, you don't enjoy it, don't play the game. That is literally what I did for like 6 months. I got really fed up of the same meta, the same high alpha vehicles. We'll talk about that as we get on into the vehicle, into the video even. High alpha vehicles with crazy accuracy, it gets frustrating at times, and it just basically drained me, having played like 4 or 5 years of just that same exact meta every single game I go into. That speed, high alpha, decent DPM or good DPM, it just meant that basically the tank classes that are in the game didn't really exist. There was very, very blurred lines between what's a medium tank, what's a tank destroyer, what's a heavy tank, what's a light tank. Like, it all kind of got into this mishmash of like, what's the point in each of the tank classes? Like, there are some inherent benefits of playing obviously all of the different tank classes. Like, there are general rules as to why you play certain things, but the actual gameplay, the mechanics and what tanks were actually good had nothing to do with what tank classes you play. And you could pretty much just play any tank in one specific role, regardless of what tank class it was. Like, the best spotter was not necessarily a light tank because of the fact that you sacrifice a lot in terms of being a light tank to get view range, but because the view range on every single tank in the game was pretty much above the maximum view range that you could have in the game, that light tanks just got outspotted by heavy tanks, for example, even if they're in a bush, because once you go over the maximum view range of a tank, you essentially start increasing the kind of magnitude of spotting. So if someone's in a bush and you've got 440 meters view range, okay, maybe you don't spot them. If you get 500, you don't spot anyone further away than like 445 meters, I think. That might be wrong. It might be 440 is the maximum. I can't quite remember. It's 440 or 445 or something like that. But if you go above that cap, then you might spot that person in the bush within your view range, so like the 440 meters. If you go up to 600, you will most definitely spot that person in the bush, because every single tank was at tier 10, for example, was basically getting up to like 480, 500 meters, 510 meters of view range. Like they were just basically outspotting light tanks in bushes, which, you know, what's the point in playing a light tank if you could just play a medium that has similar speed and has the same view range basically as you with minimal difference. And the only really negative of not playing a light tank in terms of a spotting role is you can't move without affecting your camo. So in a light tank you can move and it doesn't affect the camo of the vehicle, so it counts as you just being still even when you're moving in a light tank. That was basically the only benefit of actually playing a light tank, of which, because like you're getting spotted all of the time, it doesn't actually really matter, so it becomes less useful as a perk of playing a light tank, not an actual crew skill. So that was basically my experience of the game, and now I think what's happening is it's not perfect. I don't think this update is perfect. There's definitely some things that need to be addressed, and I think that there are some things that Wargaming will hopefully add in as time goes on. And I wanted to say that if you've got crew skills, if you have equipment that you would love to see in the game, make sure you leave them in the comment section, because it's really important that we give some decent feedback as to, okay, so maybe we lost a few equipment and stuff like that in the game. What equipment would you actually like to see? Maybe it's something really weird. Maybe it's something new. Maybe it's something exciting that would open up a weird build that you want to do in the game. Leave it in the comment section, because I think Wargaming are trying to add more equipment. They just, you know, they want to know what people would like to see as equipment, as crew skills. Even if it seems ridiculous or something that not that many people would use, adding it in might not be that bad. And so, you know, it opens up a new kind of playstyle that maybe wasn't available beforehand. So I think it's important that we give our feedback for that. I will be listing off a few different things that I hope to see in a video coming soon. So maybe I'll just collate all of your comments and stuff like that as we go through, and then we'll do that. So with that in mind, I wanted to go into the comment section of the last video, which was on the whole reversal, like I titled it, something like Reversing Update 6.0, which was not, it is somewhat reversed. Like a lot of the changes now at this point in the game have been reversed from 6.0, which was the big update like 5 years ago or 4 years ago. I can't quite remember at this point, but it was a long time ago, where they basically introduced it and like changed how crews work. They changed how equipment worked. They gave a load new buffed crew skills, which made your accuracy ridiculous on basically every tank. So we had like laser-like accuracy. You guys have played the game. That is what we received during that update. Beforehand is basically what we have now in the game. And so that is the general gist. There are some nuances to it, like we used to have more commander skills available on your commander, like 15 or something, or 16. Like you could get every single crew skill on your vehicle, but that's not very fair for anyone that isn't like playing 200,000 battles, because the crew XP required to get a 16, 17 skill crew is like millions and millions and millions of crew XP just to get the next skill. So it basically meant that the most experienced players who have played the most amount of World of Tanks get the benefits, and new players don't get the benefits. So in terms of a fairness level, you're giving the best players even more benefits, which is going to accelerate them even further above the new player who's just started the game and trying to learn the game and enjoy the game and experience the game that you have experienced back in the day. So that's why I don't think having the old commander system is necessarily good. And it also means you have to trade off crew skills now. It isn't just a case of like, okay, I can just pick all of the crew skills that I on every single tank using all of them. So I think that is a generally better solution, but it isn't the exact same. So just to clear that up, not everything is exactly the same as it was before, but I generally think like things like that were a positive benefit to a lot of players. Like, most people didn't have 12 skill crews or what have you. So yes, you might have had one, but you certainly didn't have, 10, 9 skill commanders or whatever. So yeah, that I think is a good benefit over the previous anyway, even if it is different. So with that in mind, I'm going to jump over to the comment section. I'll blur out the names of people because I don't want to hate on any specific person. I just want to see the comments. We're going to read through a couple of them and like give a critique of their critique, or like see what the general consensus is of people, because I've definitely seen some that I just thought were ridiculous as a critique of what's happened, and as well as the fact that like there are some valid criticisms in there as well, and there's generally some like good things as well that people have been saying about the update too. So let's have a look at all of them, kind of give my opinion on what some people are thinking. And yeah, once again, I'm not trying to be mean, I'm not trying to single anyone out, I'm just going to tell you how I feel about people's comments. So, I am biased. I'm going to think that my opinion is better than someone else's, but once again, my opinion isn't actually better than anyone else's. It's just better for me, if that makes sense. Like, I want the game to be as good as it can be for me and all of you guys. And if I think that something is generally going to be better in the long run, from just experience, like, that's basically what I'm trying to say. Like, yeah. I mean, if the overwhelming majority of players hate this update, then reverse it back to what it was. Like, I might not like it, but if everyone else does, that's absolutely fine. I have no issues with that. But yeah, personally, I think a lot of people need to give this update time and experience it, and not just play the same tanks that they've been playing for 5 years, obliterating and decimating people because of the fact that they've basically had stabilizer wheels to play the game. It is supposed to be a strategy game, something that you're supposed to learn and experience and get better at, and ultimately come top of the team, do the most damage, win the most things. If you're going after ramming damage, you can get your ramming damage, you can take people out, do how play however the game you want to play. And I don't think that was possible with the previous updates, at least to the same degree that it is now, which, I think is pretty good. And it also, I think there was a huge lack of skill when it came to how to actually play the game and play the game well. And I think Wargaming saw that. They've realized that it's generally not that great of a gameplay when, most of the tanks are losing half their health to basically people sitting in base and sniping with their ridiculously accurate FV4005s and stuff like this. Now, my opinions are all coming from World War II. I don't really know that much about how the Cold War mechanics are working with all of the changes. So once again, just a lens and a bit of a notify to anyone like watching this video wondering like, hey, you're saying all of this stuff, but it doesn't apply to Cold War. Like, Cold War is really bad. I don't know. I'm just speaking on behalf of the World War II, as that's what I've predominantly played. If you want a Cold War opinion, I would highly suggest going to someone like Ricky, who is going to have a much better opinion on the Cold War changes and how it's been affected. Is it better? Is it not? I personally just don't play enough Cold War to really give you that opinion. So anyway, let's jump over. I'm going to blur out the names and we'll see what kind of things people are saying. So I saw an absolute ton of people complaining about the silver cost. Now, we've seen it here. They almost killed my interest in this game. I won't use 60% of my tanks now, and I'm debating if I'm going to continue. That's absolutely fine. If you're not enjoying it, you can always leave. That's fine. I'm not trying to say that in a nasty way. I mean, like, if you genuinely don't enjoy something, then if I don't enjoy smashing my head against a brick wall, well, don't smash your head against the brick wall if you really hate it that much. But also, the seasons are getting worse, and I'm not impressed with this latest one, and how much silver I had to spend to re-equip my tanks. Now, for those of you who didn't know, the silver cost of all of the equipment that you put on a vehicle has now actually been refunded to you if the equipment has changed. So any of the equipment that has been removed from your vehicle and you have to re-put something back on, anything that you had on the tank has been refunded to you. So your silver in your account, it has been refunded to you. If it hasn't, that's a glitch. It was supposed to be refunded. I've seen people have, 10 million, 20, 30, 40 million added back to their accounts because of the equipment that they have changed. So yes, they have refunded everyone. As far as I'm aware, everyone has received the silver. The only difference is that they've added another equipment slot, which has been added to the game in order to add up some more build diversity. You can actually pick something that is tank specific as opposed to, 3 of the meta skills that basically any tank in the game is going to use. So I think that's been really, really nice, and a nice addition over what we had previously. And even back before update 6.0, I think that's generally very good. I think more equipment, more diversity, more build diversity, very good. And whilst it might cost you an extra 490,000 silver or whatever to buy another piece of equipment, that's just how the game is going to be, and everyone has to pay that silver. So, I think it's a good change. There's no issues there. It's not some ploy by Wargaming to make you want to spend money. It is just because they think it's going to be better for the game, and I think it is going to be better for the game. I think that is generally something useful. So that's just my opinion. So, next comment. You sound like you work for what? That's always a good start, when you're going for the old personal attack. Finished off by, it's too bad you're in their pocket. Clearly, this man has not actually watched any of the videos that I have made. Just about time you get tanks where you want them, then they change it. It's all about money. They make a tank overpowered and they know it. Get it time for people to spend their money and change it again. So getting people to spend their money and then they change it. No, in all fairness, it's not in Wargaming's vested interest to make a tank to change a vehicle. It's not in their best interest to change a vehicle. If they do change vehicles, typically they give a refund to anyone that purchased that vehicle. Should you choose to want a refund, you can do, and you'll get your money back for that tank. And also, it's just not ideal. They don't want to release a vehicle and then change it, especially when it's a paid vehicle. If it's a tech tree vehicle, well, that's just how it's going to be. It's going to change. Whether you like it or not, you didn't pay for it. But when it's generally a paid for vehicle, Wargaming typically do not they genuinely think for a long time whether to nerf something. It's not just we'll make something overpowered, then go in and nerf it later. If they make something that is extremely overpowered, something like a Tyrann, there have been instances where they know it's overpowered, they know it's really good, and they put it on sale again. I don't like this, and I've said it multiple times that it is a way for them to make a ton of money, and it's clear to see that it did make them a ton of money. And typically what they'll do is they'll just nerf the general game mechanics for said type of class. And that's what they typically do. Try and balance out vehicles in the tech tree to match the premium vehicles, because you've paid for that vehicle. It's not changed. They've just changed how the tech tree vehicles are, etc., to be more in line. Generally they don't really want to nerf premium vehicles that people have paid for. But yes, there are some shady business practices run by games like this. And, a lot of the time there's some pretty expensive stuff going around. I don't think that this is an instance where they're trying to get you to spend more money. The main reason, I think, is because they want to keep hold of people onto the game. They want people to engage with the game more, and they think that this gameplay is going to be better for people who play the game, which means that they make more money because people enjoy the game more. That's the intention anyway. If that isn't the case, then what can they do? Next comment. This one was an interesting one for sure. I don't understand, Eclipse. You said you studied mathematics. That's not right. It's actually engineering. But simple maths, we were screwed, and you talk it up like a corporate shill. It's interesting we get the typical comments here. My scouts are slower and more visible. Shut up. Brilliant. Thank you very much. My scouts are slower and more visible. Well, actually, I'll come out and say, no, your lights are not slower. Your lights are not slower because of the fact that the equipment was removed for everyone. And actually running speed on a light tank was unnecessary. You did not need it. They still have a horsepower and speed boost that you can still take on your vehicle. And everyone can't use that old piece of equipment. So anyone that was using it in a medium is not going to have it anymore. And so, yes, your light tanks might be slower, but so is every other tank in the game. As far as the visible thing, that's just purely not true. Because if you think from a mathematical standpoint, since, he's come up with the maths here. If we talk about maths, right, so big number, if we multiply a big number, what happens? Okay, it gets even bigger. So say we've got 100 and we multiply it by 10%, we get 110. Okay, we've got 110. We got plus 10 to what we've got. What happens when we multiply a smaller number, say 10? Well, 10% of 10 is 1, so you get an additional 1. So we've got 11. Light tanks generally have a higher base view range than any other tank in the game. So they have the bigger number. So it gets multiplied by any equipment that we put on a vehicle up. So that will go higher than, say, if you put it on a heavy tank, for example. So, 10% more view range on a heavy tank is going to give you less additional view range when you apply that piece of equipment to that tank. Which means, because whilst they've reduced the amount of view range and stuff like this that can be added and how view range works and the actual boost that each of those view range things give you within the game, it means that essentially what's happening is your view range is going up to a lesser degree, which means that heavy tanks can no longer necessarily reach the cap of the view range, which means now your light tank will reach above the cap still. It just might not be as high, but it does now mean that you don't just get spotted by heavy tanks who have 500 meters of view range because of the fact that they had such an overboost and that everything went above the maximum view range cap. So now you're seeing that light tanks actually have above the maximum view range still, but other tanks do not have above the maximum view range, even if they put that equipment on if they are certain tank classes, or the magnitude of what they go over that view range cap has come lower, which means you're more likely to remain undetected when you're in a bush. So just to clear that up, that is how mathematically it's going to work. Yes, that is how it works. So simple maths, as I like to say. So the next comment, the skill system was good before they screwed everybody over. And what are you talking about, reverse? Didn't see anything remotely close to reversed in your clip, and all they need to do is remove the render limitation so the game can be played in accordance with the rules. That and nerf everything. And remove corridor map setup. Let the game be played across the board. Been waiting for decades now, but the game seems to only get worse. More corridor play, less crew skills, closer combat. The game is just stupid with good graphics. Such a shame. Now, some of the things that are said here, like, I don't necessarily understand. Like, for example, nerf everything. Now, if we take that quite literally, nerf everything. What do you mean? Because that just basically means everything is on an even playing field. Everything's getting nerfed, so the game remains the same, just with less amounts. I don't... maybe an explanation as to what that actually is, if we're going to actually critique and try and make a better game, and explain what you mean by nerfing everything, whether it is quite literally everything. Don't really know, but it's strange. Remove corridor map setup. Now, whilst I completely actually think that this is a good idea, it just shouldn't be on every single map. I think that new maps should come out where we don't actually have any corridors and it's more open fields, like a Rolling Hills or something like that. Map could even be called Rolling Hills, whereby it's a big open battlefield. The main way that you avoid damage is from using hills, terrain, rocks, that sort of stuff. No buildings, no corridors. It's just random objects just around. See how that actually plays in the game. It's not been done, to my knowledge, on World of Tanks PC or World of Tanks console, and I think it would be something novel and unique and just something fun. I mean, a giant hilly map or, divoty map like sand dunes and stuff like that, where you go down into the dune and that's the way you avoid damage. And moving around boulders and stuff like that. I think it could be a really fun way of doing it. So I actually think that would be a good idea, just not removing all of the corridors and every single map. I don't know how that would work. Plus, like, sometimes it's nice to have a corridor map. It also makes heavy tanks, have a purpose when you have stuff like that as well. And I think that has been... generally it's worked well. Not a huge amount of people really hate the corridor maps. I think it's only really the case when you feel like there is like 2 corridors and that is it, and there's no way of kind of getting counter shots between the corridors and finding bits in the middle, like huge open zones of like no activity. That is the bad maps. So yeah, I think that somewhat relevant comment there. And then all they need to do is remove the render limitation. Now, basically what I imagine this is True Vision in World War II, but World War II players hated True Vision, so that is just not going to come. And the render limitation basically is there to counteract people being able to sit at the back and snipe people miles and miles away, because obviously render limitation comes in when you're really far away, like we're talking 600 meters away. It's the very outer circle, like the big outer circle. You basically see it, so someone can be spotted, they have no chance at spotting you back. So what you're basically saying is that it's going to reward sniping and sitting at the back of the map and being able to see everyone when they get spotted. That is bad gameplay. That is not enjoyable, and it will just lead to everyone camping in the base and waiting for one of their team to YOLO in to spot 2 people, and then 10 people just sit and snipe from the back of their base, and then vice versa, and it's not going to be fun. I think, yeah, that's just a bad idea. You just have to learn the render limitation. That's just basically what you got to do. And that is how I would suggest that people play. Next one, I believe everyone or everything is being pushed in the direction so everyone's win rate is exactly 50% regardless of skill level. Terrible update. Now, without sounding bad, I think this is the typical thing that players that have low win rates say about the reason why they have low win rates, or something close to 50%. I'm not saying that like 52% win rate isn't good. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that if you learn the game, you learn how to play well, and you play consistently well, not just one game every like 10 games where you do well. I'm talking consistently. You learn the game mechanics, you learn positioning, rotating around the map, learning how to aim, learning all of the weak points. You're going to win more games. And with all of these changes, there's nothing to say that this is going to change. Like, if you're a good player, you will have a higher win rate. It is just how it plays out. It's not because you have a high win rate that you win games. It's the fact that you're winning games more, and therefore your win rate goes up. That's just how it works. For example, if I'm playing in a game and I'm playing against a 45% win rate player, and I have a 60% win rate player on my team, 9 times out of 10, the 60% win rate player is going to dominate that 45% win rate player because they understand the game mechanics, blah, blah, blah. So if you have more skill in the game, typically your win rate is higher. There are some caveats with regards to people playing low tier vehicles that are mega overpowered, or just generally really overpowered vehicles, but that is like a small minority out of the wide array of players that play the game. I'm looking at you, T67 drivers. Maybe this guy might have even been playing the T67, of which I have no empathy, because, that got nerfed into the ground, at least, with regards to its DPM, which is good. That tank was mega overpowered and really annoying for any new players coming in with those, 100,000 game players deciding to jump in a tier 5 vehicle and just Seal Club. Now it's time for you to get Seal Club, Mr. Seal Clubber. Now, I got another comment. This is one that isn't negative. This is just a simple question being asked: is there a spotting cap for view range in Cold War? I have a setup for 920 meters of view range on my tank, and I feel it doesn't spot vehicles as good as it should, and I have to get closer than I should have to. I don't know if they intended for someone to actually play scout build to the extremes. So this is something that I do believe that there is a maximum view range within Cold War. I do believe that is a thing. And so it will work the same way that World War II is. I just don't think the value is the same. So instead of like 445 meters that World War II has, where that's the maximum range which you can spot people regardless of how much view range you have, like even if you have 10,000 view range, the maximum distance away someone has to be will be 445 regardless. Like you can't spot someone 10,000 meters away, even if you did have view range. So that is that. But going above the cap will obviously increase the likelihood of spotting people that are in bushes or have good vehicle camo. So other light tanks, for example. That's how the spotting mechanics work. So it could be the fact that other tanks have really good camo, which negates some of your view range, essentially. So you have to get closer to be able to spot them. Like, imagine it as like a, how do we say it? Like, the closer you are, the more likely you're to spot someone, because it starts eating into their concealment, like negation, if that makes sense. Like, if someone had 0 concealment, if you have 445 meters, you will spot them. If they have 300 concealment, maybe you would get like 150 meters away and then you wouldn't spot them. So if you go over the cap of 440 on World War II, you'll actually eat into their still concealment. So it'll basically negate some of that still concealment that they have, and therefore you spot them further away. That's kind of how it works, in like a dumbed down sense. That's basically how it works, to all of my knowledge anyway. So I do believe that is the case. I don't know the specific value for Cold War, and I do believe it is higher. For some reason in my head, I'm thinking like 500 meters or something like that. 500 and something meters. I don't know for sure. Maybe one of you guys knows that for sure. I don't play that much Cold War, as I say, but I thought it was an interesting comment, and just to clear up some things about view range, as a lot of people tend to think like it's a really difficult thing to get your head around, but once you understand it, you'll realize why you're not getting spotted and how you can counteract that as well. Next one is Knights of Wargaming to scam us again. So crew skills removed to tank equipment that we already paid for. Now we have to reset all the commanders and tank equipment. There goes your silver on equipment again. So the crew skills being swapped to equipment is basically as a balancing measure. Like, they're trying to balance the game. It means that heavy tanks have to sacrifice like a decent thing in order to get like silent driving, for example, which is basically, it's going to improve your light tank gameplay, which is predominantly what should be using camo and concealment, not like every tank in the game. And so essentially what previously happened is basically it was so meta to use the silent driving that now they've swapped it to an equipment so that you do actually have a trade-off. Like, not every tank is going to use this because you have to trade off something pretty substantial in your equipment slots to use this. So, you know, now there's going to be much less people using this. And so it's going to open up the dynamic of, playing more view range based things, which there was a sufficient lack of view range, as we've already talked about. So that is why it's important. And yes, you do have to pay for equipment again, but it's only the equipment extra slot. Like, you have been refunded things, and whilst the things that have changed from a crew skill to an equipment, yes, you are going to have to purchase if you want to with silver. Yes, you are going to have to purchase that, but it's up to you whether or not you want to do that. If you don't want to run it, don't run it. Don't spend the silver. But if you do, that's just how the game is going to be from now on. Like, it sucks, but everybody in the entire game has to do this regardless. So, like, it's not just one person, and whilst it is annoying that you have to pay some silver for something that you feel like you had before, like, it's also freed up a slot in your crew skills that you can use for something else as well, if you want to use that piece of equipment. So that's kind of how I view it. Like, if it means that the game is better, the game plays better, perfect. I will 100% trade off 500,000 silver on a one-time purchase on the vehicle that I'm playing in order to have a much better gameplay. experience, because at the end of the day you can play 2 games in Cold War and make 500,000 silver, and the discount on equipment right now is actually very good, which was done to help people not have to pay so much for equipment as well. Next thing is playing light tanks is useless now. Might be a bug because my still concealment is 280 and my vision is 415. They're literally the same radius in the game. Yes, this has been a thing in the game. I've noticed this myself. I've played many light tanks as we've gone through. And yeah, I do believe it's just a visual bug. I think that it still actually works the same in terms of your view range. But how it shows in the game is definitely different. So yeah, I don't know what's going on there, but I'm sure that they'll iron it out. It's probably just a bug, whether it's a visual bug or an actual bug. I'm sure that they'll fix this and it won't just be like a this is how it works, because your still concealment should be what it is. It might be that actually the still concealment is working better now because it is still concealment when you're stopped. But yeah, we'll see how it actually does in the game. Another thing is, I've got a comment. Before I had a crew for every tank. Now I have 2 crews for every tank. What is nice about... So what is nice about that, I assume? I assume that this person English isn't the first language, so I would be terrible at trying to write in a different language to my own. In fact, I couldn't do it, so I won't say anything about that. But for every tank, what is nice about this is what I assume is what they're trying to say. If that is, then I don't really get how you've got 2 crews for every tank. Having 1 crew for every tank, I don't really know, so I can't comment on that. Then now I have to buy tools for every tank. Sick change. So I'm assuming they're talking about equipment here, that they're having to buy equipment for every tank because obviously it's changed. And yes, you do, and so does everybody else who plays the game. It is not a specific thing to just you, and for the betterment of the game, I think that is generally a good change. If the only thing, this is something I want to say, if the only thing you can complain about the update is the fact that you have to pay silver in a one-time thing on the tank that you're playing, like, yes, you might have to do it for lots of tanks, and it is annoying. It does cost silver, and, you know, it is a pain in the backside, but from this point forward, everybody has to do it. Everybody has to pay the silver, and everybody who buys a new vehicle is going to have to do it. If you research a new vehicle, you're going to have to do it. I'm going to have to do it. Everyone who owns tanks, who wants to run with all of the equipment slots, has to do it. And if it is, if that is the only thing that you can really say is bad about it, then I think Wargaming have done a pretty solid job with how they've introduced this. And it says, you are literally a paid action, so I'm assuming actor. Bad change, and you try to say good change. Look, as I said, it's just my opinion. I'm not a paid actor. I might be an actor, whatever. You can say I'm a joker, I'm an idiot, I'm silly, but I'm not a paid one. I would love to be paid, not by Wargaming, just paid. But either way, yeah, basically, I think that like, it's annoying. I get it. I have to do it. It's going to cost me millions and millions and millions, because remember, I have like 700 tanks, and every time I play one of those, I'm going to have to spend 200,000 silver. You know, it's going to cost me a solid like 15 million, maybe more, 150 million. Is it 150? I've got 700 at 200k a piece. Yeah, it's probably like 150 million or something crazy like that. Either way, it's a lot of silver just to add equipment to all of my tanks. So, yes, I understand the pain, but if it means I can enjoy the game, I can use different pieces of equipment, I'm going to have a blast playing those tanks, I don't care. That's the trade-off. And of course, anyone playing the game is going to have to deal with this. So, yes, that is a trade-off I am 100% willing to pay. And no, you don't have to pay with it with real money. I'd highly recommend just, you know, get your premium tanks sorted first, play those, earn some silver, keep on upgrading. And right now, due to the equipment discount, I'd highly recommend you buy all of the equipment that you possibly can right now before it goes off of the sale. so that you can make the most of the sales, because it's going to double the cost of doing it. So if you've got silver lying around and you need to equip all your tanks, I'd highly recommend you do it right now. Otherwise, it's going to cost you double when they change the equipment thing. So yes, I understand it is a pain in the backside, but it's one I think that is necessary for a better game. So yeah, maybe Wargaming could have just given us a cruise, like an equipment voucher that we could use. But I don't know if they have the actual implementation of that. So they might have had to spend a long time developing a system to give us additional vouchers that is only ever going to get used once. So I don't know whether that's even worth them spending the dev time to do. So yeah, there's that. But I thought it's something to talk about. Next one, curious people's thoughts on +1 -1. I thought it felt more balanced. Anyone else? Maybe you hated it. So personally, I don't really like +1 -1. I actually like +2 -2. Before you get into the comments though, saying, oh my god, I can't believe you prefer +2 -2. I'm not saying that I want +2 -2, because I'm really indifferent. It doesn't matter to me whether I'm -2 or -1. It really does not matter. I don't care. It's irrelevant to me. Personally, I like being -2, which is probably a weird thing for you guys, but I like being able to try and have that challenge of being 2 tiers lower and still dealing with those higher tier vehicles. It's just, I find it fun. Am I going to say that everybody else should have to play +2 -2 because of what I think? Absolutely not. I think +1 -1, considering how many people want it and how many I see thinking it's a positive change, want it, then Wargaming should absolutely do it. But the only issue I think that Wargaming are doing in not doing +1 -1 is the fact that it might take a lot longer to get into matches. Now, this isn't purely going to be they're just adding extra matchmakers so that, theoretically there's 2 more matchmakers for 1 matchmaker, because, +2 -2 will give you, 2 sets of matchmaking tiers. And so you'd think oh, okay, so it will double the time of getting into a battle. That's not necessarily the case, because of the fact that distribution of who plays different tiers within the game. So tier 10 might have lots of players. Tier 9s might have a lot less players, considerably less, 20% of players play tier 9 versus tier 10. Which means if you're playing tier 9 and you've got +1 -1, you are probably more likely to be coming up in tier 10 games, because the tier 10s need people to feed in. And tier 8s, because a lot of people play tier 8s, may also, have lots of players. You'll get into a game quick, and you maybe play against tier 9s, maybe, but there's not that many tier 9s, so there might not be that many in your game. So you're constantly top tier. So that's kind of the issues I think that happens, is that they can't get a good distribution where, you find yourself a reasonable rate of being top tier versus low tier. And we already know how bad it is typically if you play certain tiers. It's because of how many people are playing those tiers versus the +2 -2, getting unlucky. It's just because of how many players play each tier. For example, if you're playing tier 5 and 6, there's very little people that play tier 5 versus tier 6, because there's lots more tier 6 premiums. So there's probably 3 times as many players playing tier 6 as tier 5. And that means if you're playing a tier 5, you're probably going to be coming up against tier 6 every game. So that's not really that fun either, when you're every single game, 9 times out of 10, coming up against tier 6s every single game. Yes, you might not come up against tier 7s, but you're also not really coming up against 4s and 5s, or 4s and 3s. So it's a trade-off. I think there's some things that need to be worked out, ironed out, and tested. And whilst I think the tests are good, I think that's the main reason Wargaming haven't implemented it just yet, because they don't want it to just be that if you play tier 7, you're always in a tier 8 game, or if you play tier 9, you're always in a tier 10 game. I think that they would like that you would be able to get an even distribution, but in order to do that, they need more players to play the game. So if you don't have lots of players in the matchmaker in the queue, you've got less to pick from, and so it's heavily skewed between the tiers that are popular, which is tier 10, tier 8, tier 6, tier 9 maybe, and then that's kind of probably what I'd see as the more popular tiers in the game, mainly because there's premiums, and tier 10 is the highest tier in the game, and people see that as like the top tier, the top level, the ones to play. So that's kind of what I think is the reason why they haven't, but I do think that if they could, that's what they should do. So there's another comment, which is, feel like this is the final nail in the coffin. It's boring sitting there waiting 30 seconds to reload every time, and if you miss or bounce, you're stuffed. I think they should have allowed everybody to have a 9-skill commander on every tank to make it more competitive. Instead, you've got people with 3 skills playing against people with 9 skills. I was enjoying the +1, -1 week. So there's quite a bit in there with regards to different things. So +1, -1 we've already talked about. We just did. Yes, I agree. It's nice. Lots of people enjoy it. I think it's good. The thing about 3 skills versus 9, like, in all fairness, I would have no objection if they decided to just roll out 9-skill crews to everyone. Like, I get it that you want to feel like you're progressing in multiple ways as you're going through, and that they have Commander XP. That's kind of how it's always worked. Like, but then what do you do about people who have bought 3D hero commanders and stuff like that? Like, if you remove the Commander XP, people are going to get upset that now they have a commander that they've paid like a premium for, but then doesn't get the Commander XP boost because there is no longer Commander XP. Like, how does that work? Like, how would they do it? Maybe they'd swap the Commander XP for Vehicle XP, so it gives you more Vehicle XP or something, to compensate you for the fact that you bought a premium commander. But I'm sure people get arsy about the fact that now they don't get Commander XP boost instead of Vehicle XP boost, even though the Vehicle XP boost would be better. Yeah. I don't really know what to really think about that. I mean, if it was me, like, I'm indifferent. I think 9 skills, just roll it out with 9 skills everyone. Like, it doesn't really affect me at all. So yeah, that's what I think could potentially be an option. So I somewhat agree with that. Though there is one that is, it's boring sitting there waiting 30 seconds to reload every time. So this is obviously someone who decides to play high alpha TDs, or artillery, for example. Now, before, I think we've been subject to this thing that, okay, I reload 24 seconds, say, like, because of all of the reload perks and buffs and everything you could get before. And I hit every single time because the accuracy is so good. So my trade-off of having higher alpha and basically compared to something that has lower alpha and is supposedly, like, you know, has better DPM because it has lower alpha, that didn't really exist to the same degree. And now what's happened is, hang on a minute, there is actually a trade-off now. I do actually miss if I take a tank that has high alpha and bad accuracy to begin with, because what we had before was, you know, FE 4005, base accuracy, I think, like, might be 0.41. Don't quote me on that. That's just off the top of my head, something in that region, which obviously big number. If we reduce the accuracy by the big number, it gets smaller. By, say, we've got 100 accuracy, 10% is going to take away 10. If we've got 50 accuracy, so more accurate, and we reduce it by 10, it's only 5. So it's half the difference. So what happened is that the super accurate tanks didn't really get affected by having more accuracy. It was very minimal. Like, obviously they're more accurate, and so they were like mega lasers. But the high alpha tanks were the biggest impacted. Same with like artillery and that sort of stuff, where the RNG of those got really, really good. And so you never really missed, which was supposed to be the trade-off between having higher alpha. So I think that this is just something that, it sucks to suck. You enjoyed playing those high alpha tanks with no trade-off, basically, in order to have the super high alpha, the super high pen, and the ability to one-shot people, with no trade-off for like 5 years, and now it's coming back, and it's probably a surprise that maybe you're now actually missing shots, or bouncing shots because they didn't go exactly where you aimed, which was the intended design. That's supposed to be a trade-off, and now you're going to have to pay the consequences of picking a tank that did have that trade-off. Whereas before, you didn't really have to have that trade-off because the accuracy was so good. So, yeah, I think that is just a case of you enjoyed it whilst it lasted, and now it's time to put the big boy pants on and understand that if you bounce, unlucky. I had to play my mediums and get swung halfway across the map on the move by a FE 4005 and penned for 1450 for 5 years, and I just went, it's unlucky. Now the FE 4005s are going to have to go, I missed. That's unlucky. Sucks to suck. The wheel revolves, and now it's your turn. So this, I think, doesn't really have anything to stand on. Like, I agree, it's annoying, but when you do hit, it makes it all that more rewarding. Like, when I was playing the FV before all of the changes, I was thinking, like, when I hit someone and I penned and I hit them where I aimed, I was like, yes, I've penned. Like, yes, I've ruined that guy's game. Yes. And, like, after then, I was like, every shot hits. Like, it loses the, like, appeal, at least to me anyway. Like, if it's just kind of like, well, of course I'm going to hit. Like, I have ridiculous accuracy. Like, damn, I missed. Like, that's really annoying. I should have hit because I have such good accuracy. Now it's going to be, yes, I hit. Yes, finally. And I think that actually brings in the appeal of tanks like the KV2. Back in the day, it used to be like, you played it for the meme. You played it because it was funny. You played it because you had the dream of getting that 900 damage shot at a Waffle E100 when you could play +3, -3 with a light tank in your platoon, and you could play with the light tank 1 tier higher. You used to be able to get a tier 6 in a tier 10 game back on World of Tanks console, like many, many years ago. And so I used to platoon with a tier 7 Walker Bulldog, which is now a tier 8. Weird, I know. The Walker Bulldog used to be a tier 7, for those of you that weren't around back then. And I used to play the KV2 with a teammate who had in a platoon with a Walker Bulldog. And then I would hope that we got in those tier 10 games just so I could slap a Waffle E100, one of the most overpowered TDs back in the day, because it had 6 shots and was just a monster. And I used to pen them for 1,000 damage in the KV2 with the HE rounds. And I was like, yes, that is what the game is made for. I think this sort of stuff probably going to start coming back. Like, it's just fun. It's fun. It brings like the excitement back about hitting shots. It brings back the excitement when you're playing in a heavy tank and you actually bounce around. Like, I played the IS-7 the other day and I bounced like 4k damage. The rarity of that, like, is crazy before the patch because of the fact that, like, people just didn't really miss. Even if, like, because when it comes to IS-7s and stuff like that, the armor really works when people, like, maybe they're aiming for the lower plate, but it hits the upper plate and bounces off. Like, that is what basically makes the IS-7's armor really usable when you're, like, exposed without, like, going hold down, basically. So, like, yes, you can get the IS-7 to work, but what I'm talking about is when you're, like, actually out in the open. I bounced rounds with the IS-7. I bounced them off the side, probably because someone went for the inner like upper plate when I was angled towards them, so they would have penned it, but it hit the side because the accuracy isn't as good. So you actually bounce rounds, and then when you're playing your heavies, you're like, yes, I'm actually getting lucky. And so it becomes like you're bouncing, and so it just feels good. And so that sort of thing, like before, it just used to be they just auto aim, and it hits center of mass. Your accuracy's so good, it always hits like where the center of mass is. It doesn't like bloom off to the side and hit your side of the tank where it would bounce. It just always hits you in that like center of mass, which would be the upper plate or, you know, the lower plate or that region of the tank. Whereas now it can actually hit the turret, it can hit the side. And so you end up bouncing more, not just in the R7, by the way. This is every tank in the game. Like, it doesn't just go exactly where you're aiming. And by God, do I love it. Like, armor is going to be somewhat back in this patch. If someone aims properly, like they're actually aiming at you and they, give lead, they're going to pen you. Like, more often than not. But if someone's auto-aiming you now, which, a lot of people have been doing, primarily because of the fact that auto-aim was so overpowered, now you're not able to just auto-aim people and pen them every time, because that accuracy could actually screw you over, rather than it not ever screwing you over, like, unless you're really far away. So, yeah, I think the trade-off that we never had for like 5 years has actually been noticed now. There is a trade-off to having higher alpha, and you're going to have to deal with it. So yeah, like, whilst I enjoyed using the FE4005 and hitting loads of shots and having ridiculous damage games, or playing the FE215B183 or the Ruthless or the E100 or the Tyran or stuff like this, where you would always hit every single time, everywhere that you aimed precisely, with no potential for you not actually aiming and hitting where you're aiming. Like, now there is that room, and that is the cost of having higher alpha. Now the mediums are going to be more desirable because they can actually hit reliably where you're aiming. And so that is the trade-off. Lower alpha, more accuracy, you hit. Higher alpha, you have the chance to not hit. And so that is the trade-off. There you go. That's just my opinion. Obviously, if you guys absolutely hate it, everyone hates it, and the majority of players hate it, and they think it's diabolical, and that they think that you've got more skill by somehow just everything having way more accuracy without having to trade off anything between the tank classes, and the tank classes actually being a thing now, like heavies actually bouncing things, mediums actually being able to use accuracy as an advantage of their tank class, light tanks actually being able to use view range, because not everything has maximum view range and over maximum view range, and tank destroyers being able to use their high alpha and use view range and concealment to a different degree than heavies. Like, it's opened the game back up to playing the actual tank classes, which have been in the game for years, and for the past 5 years didn't really mean anything. So yeah, basically the last 5 years before the update, it was high alpha, high DPM, okay accuracy, like don't really even have to consider accuracy because of all of the perks, and then mobility. You're fast, you get into position, and you have a bit of armor, especially turret armor. If you've got turret armor with no cupolas, you're fast, you have high alpha, welcome to the world of tanks, you're going to dominate. If you have super high alpha, you're really, really fast, you've got great concealment and ridiculous view range, you're going to win. That was the Tyran I'm talking about. So, you see what I mean? Now we actually have consequences to playing certain tank classes, and I think now we're going to have to try and figure out new ways, or old ways, reverting back to the old ways of, dealing with the tank classes as they're intended for the game. So I think for the enjoyability, the playability, and the general gameplay theory, strategy, how to play well, it's going to be good, and people will learn. It might take some time. Just give it a bit of time, enjoy the process, enjoy when you do hit your shots, get a little bit salty when you miss. Like, I will get salty when I miss. I do. It's all part of the process. It's all fun. For every person that you miss, someone else misses you. It's all just fun and games. We all play a game. It's a game at the end of the day. Don't stress about it too much. I'm not going to stress about it. I'm just going to enjoy the process, enjoy the game, try and have good games, play with people who I enjoy playing with, and, try and make videos that hopefully are enjoyable and fun. And I think that this update is going to be able to do it. I just wanted to talk about some of the things that people were saying, kind of critique their critiques, or give responses to some of the critiques, or give my opinion on them, agree with the ones that I agree with. And I certainly think that there is a long way to go with regards to the amount of equipment and crew skills that we've got, because there can be more, and I think that there should be more, and there's interesting ones, and I'll do a video about things that I think could be added as interesting, fun things for us to try out and play with and use with all of the 4 equipment slots that we've got now. So yeah, hopefully you'll enjoy the videos and you didn't take this too seriously. I'm not trying to argue with people. I'm not trying to single people out. I'm just giving my own opinion. I love the game. I want it to be as good as possible. I want everyone to enjoy it. And yeah, if everyone hates it, then I'll just have to deal with it. And yeah, there we go. So thank you very much. I will see you in the next one where we'll be trying the IS7 ramming build. I cannot wait to play it. I'll make 2 uploads today just because this one isn't actually gameplay orientated. So yeah, thank you. It's a long one, but it was worth talking about. And I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.